I'm going to introduce you guys to a project management approach called Agile, and that's what we're going to talk about for like the next 10 minutes. Which wall can I write on in here, by the way?
That one behind you.
Behind me?
Yeah.
Do you guys have any markers?
No.
Whole case. I know. Alright, so can you guys do me a favor? I'm going to need you to focus for like 15 minutes. So that means like no laughing and all that stuff. Can you do it? Like 15? Okay, cool. So my name is Shonna Dorsey. I run Interface Web School, and I also teach there a little bit. I primarily do project management. That's my background, is project management. And other people teach at Interface or long courses and teach people how to code, help them find jobs, all that good stuff. So the reason why I'm here today is to introduce you to an approach to get your projects done and to work effectively together to build something, okay? The approach I really like for project management is called Agile, and the methodology is Agile, and the approach is called Scrum, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about this afternoon. I'm going to tell you about how to do it, some of the common practices, and then help you think about, as a team, how you would fit together to get this done. Can you guys tell me what's hilarious? I really want to know because I want to laugh too.
Oh.
I'm serious. I want to know.
Look at his face.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, this is Scrum in 100 words. You guys can all read, so I'm not going to read this slide to you. But basically what it is it allows you guys to kind of think about your project in, how many weeks do they have to work on this? Like 10 weeks, something like that?
Something like that. It's 4 to 6 months, 6 months.
Oh, 6 months. Okay, that's good. You have some time. But to kind of help you break down your project into chunks of work that are manageable. So like your first thing on a project, let's kind of think about this. You have a web development project, so your goal is to build something at the end that does something. What's the very first thing that you need to do, if you think about it, on a project to build a web application or website?
Design it.
Design it, right? Okay, what else? What are some other things that are some of the first things that you do?
Figure out what you want it to do.
Yeah, what you want it to be. So kind of like figuring out the scope of it, right? Okay. Yeah. So an example of using that, like scope determination and design and all that stuff would be to say, for the next 2 weeks, we're going to focus on designing our application and what we want it to be. So that would be your deliverable, and the only thing that group would focus on for that period of time. You do that, and then after that would come building, right? Building something of some sort. So maybe it's like, we're just going to build all the screens and the CSS related to this thing. So you would do that for the next period of time. So it just allows you to really focus on small chunks of the project to deliver it all. Because if you try to tackle it all, it usually doesn't go very well. So just small chunks of functionality, short period of time, deliver it, move on to the next thing. That's it in a nutshell. Okay. This slide is just talking about who came up with Scrum. This is good for if you ever have a quiz or something, which I will not give you. But it was created by a lot of people who noticed that there were a lot of problems in the way that traditional project management works. So back in the day, the way that you would build web applications is the first thing that would happen is a group of business analysts would get together with the business users and say, what do you guys want? So they develop all the requirements for a product up front. And then they would hand those requirements over to a group of developers and say, okay, now go build it. They would go build it in a silo, like not talking to the business at all. So they would go build it, and then however much time later, let's say 3 to 6 months later, they'd say, here's that thing you told us about 6 months ago. How many of you guys think that like your idea today will be the exact same like 6 months later? It's not very likely, right?
No.
Maybe yours.
No.
That's good. But let's just talk about like an entire business, a department. Usually something changes. Priorities change, something like that. There's always some adjustments. So typically when that product comes back at the end of that development cycle, it's not what the users want anymore. And then they have to start over or re-engineer the product. So with Scrum, it allows us to focus on a little bit at a time, make sure that's right, do a little bit more, check in with the user again. If they change their mind about something, it's way easier to make adjustments on a little bit of functionality rather than a final product at the end. Plus, everybody's happier because they're talking more, which I think is good. These are the types of companies that have used Scrum, just a sampling, just showing you that it's not all software engineering. It's Salesforce, Time Warner, just lots of different types of companies that are serving a lot of different customers. And then also the types of projects that Scrum has been used for. So you have mobile application development, commercial software, video game development, all sorts of different types of projects that Scrum can be utilized on. Okay, key characteristics of Agile is that out of all of these things, like when I summarize it, it's just that people are talking all the time. Requirements are always being refined. People are always communicating and making sure that they're on the same page. So the business and developers and business analysts are always in communication and saying, all right, here's what we think they wanted. Let's confirm with them. Let's go build it. Let's go show them a little bit. Do they still like it? Yes or no? Let's refine it. So it's a constant process of collaborating with your customer and really building a product that meets everybody's needs. I love that slide transition. Did you see that? Like 1980s. Okay. Agile Manifesto. So this was developed just over time because of the things that people notice in traditional projects. So this is old school stuff, processes and tools, a bunch of documentation, negotiating contracts up front, and then following a very strict plan. With Agile, you're more focused on communication, individuals and interactions, working software, so that just means as soon as something can be workable, we're delivering it over, let's get all this documentation and requirements up front. And then you're working with the customer constantly, so you do base it on a contract that says maybe it's a 6-month period, we're gonna deliver a thing, sure. However, within that period of time, you're constantly working with your customer to get to this end. And then being able to respond to change. So if your customer changes their mind about something, and I know you're going to be your own customers in this case, but you're able to just be adaptable and not so strict based on a contract. Okay, I'm going to skip a couple slides here and get to this one. This is my favorite slide of all slides. Okay. So this is Scrum in a nutshell, and I could just spend like hours on, not hours, 20 minutes on it. But what you have is on this far left side, you've got what's known as a product backlog, and I want you guys to kind of remember this stuff because I will quiz you later. I promise no quiz, and then I just lied to you. I'm going to quiz you. But the product backlog is basically all of the features and functionality your web application or website needs to have. So it's just a list of requirements written differently. Then you have a sprint backlog, and that's what is shown here. So your product backlog is everything. Your sprint backlog is a subset of your product backlog, and it's like, here's what we're going to work on for the next, let's say, 2 weeks. Sorry, that's right here. During that 2-week period, you guys are building and testing and talking all the time about your progress and making sure that you're sticking to delivering this. This box here that says sprint goal, all of your items in your sprint backlog should be related to that goal, so it kind of keeps everything on track. It's kind of like a mini project right here. So 2 to 4 weeks, you're building and testing, and then at the very end of it, you should have a deliverable product, which is basically like at the end of that, you should have something that you can give your customer and they can use potentially. So whether that's a design document, that's something that they could take and say, okay, this project's over, but they could take it to the next developer and say, okay, can you build this based on this document that we have? So it's a finished product or piece of an artifact that they can use. But I just wanted to show you this because this is, in a nutshell, like I said, how Scrum works. You have a backlog and you're constantly chipping away at it during every sprint. So you would take this chunk of features, build it, ship it, and then the next thing that you would take out in this example is gift wrap. So that would come up here at the sprint goal. You would figure out all of the tasks that need to happen to achieve that goal. Build it, test it, deploy it, then go to cancel. So that's the next goal, and then you build it out and just kind of keep cranking away at making your product backlog have nothing in it. The goal is to empty it. That's the project. Does that make sense? Oh, there's more stuff coming. What's going on here? Oh. All right, this is another of the same image. So again, backlog, subset of that is a sprint backlog. build and test, ship it out. This item right here that says daily Scrum meeting, that's known as a stand-up. And so what a stand-up is you guys would get together, and I think you know about this, right? Can you tell us what a stand-up is like in 10 seconds?
So it's where everyone gets together and finds out what needs to get done, what has to get done, and what you have to do in order to get your backlog through.
Right.
That was, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So it's what we worked on, what I'm going to be working on for the next however long, and then what issues I'm having. So each of your teams is going to have different roles, and we'll talk about that here shortly. But basically, the goal is to meet up and talk about what issues you're having and fix it so that you can all move forward. This is kind of a summary of what a sprint looks like. So Scrum is a series of sprints, so that was that sprint backlog we talked about. And typical duration is 2 to 4 weeks, or a calendar month at most. And since you guys have 6 months, you might be able to go a little bit longer. I wouldn't go longer than 4 weeks, though, between sprints. And then a constant duration. So once you decide on what your cadence is going to be or your frequency of delivery, just stick to it. If you don't finish stuff, then you know you took on too much during that sprint, and that's okay. Just adjust and move forward. And then again, like I said, during that sprint, your product is designed, coded, and tested, and then hopefully a final product is available at the end. Okay. And build, design, test, code test. This is old school again. That's gather requirements, then design it, then code it, then test it. In Scrum, you're doing all of that stuff all of the time. So your goal is to work toward the sprint goal, but you might be doing requirements gathering near the end of it, depending on what you're working on. But design and coding and testing happens all the time. So it's just like overlapping processes, but it works really well. Okay, one rule. There's lots of little rules, but this one is really important. And I would say that if you stick to this, it'll really help you know as a team what you can actually get done. And that is, don't make changes during the sprint. So don't change what you're going to work on. If you're like, oh, we took on too much, leave it in, and then accept that at the end of it, you just couldn't get as much done as you thought, and then adjust for the time for the next one. Okay? So that's one thing I think is really important, is don't change it. Okay, a few different things, and then let me see how many more. Okay, so there's a few roles on the team, and they're the Scrum Master, which is kind of like the team's project manager. So that person is ultimately responsible for what gets done on the project. And then you have the team, which includes your developers and testers, and that's pretty much everybody, including the Scrum Master in many cases. And then the product owner. That person in a traditional project, which this won't be, but in a traditional project, that person would be the one who would communicate with the client. So that person's responsible for making sure that the product, what's being developed matches what the client is asking for. So what you'll probably have more than likely on your projects is a Scrum Master and then people that are delivering. So this person is just going to try to make sure that everything stays on schedule. Let's go around real quick because I've been talking a lot. And just tell me, in a nutshell, like 15 seconds, what your project is going to be if you know already. I'll start with you guys. Yeah.
We're going to create a web application for Keep Kids Alive Drive 25 that's basically going to allow them to more easily report incidents of speeding and generate a heat map of like speeding in the community.
Okay.
So they'll know exactly where their campaign is needed most.
Okay, cool. Okay. How about you guys?
It's for inventorying a warehouse, and there's going to be a website, or maybe just a program apart from the website where we can inventory books in our warehouse and keep managing our inventory. And then we're going to create a website for the TDO program, which lets the community know what we are and lets them contact us if they want books for any donation to the community.
Got it. When you said TDL, you must go to Brian, right? And,
Yeah.
Okay, also I know that because Charlie was sitting back there, which isn't fair, but that's cool. Okay, good. And then, are you with that team? Okay, yeah.
My partner is
Okay.
our idea is basically kids and small business ideas. We're doing a website for managing money, using wedding templates,
Okay.
saving templates.
Great. Okay.
I'm not doing the project.
Okay.
I'm just,
Here.
I'm just here to learn.
Oh, good. Well, welcome. Okay.
Ours is website for tutoring. So basically, we would have online tutoring, in-person tutoring,
Okay.
and also online learning.
Okay, so kind of, got it, so just to access for students to get help for.
We're making a website that connects high schoolers who need service hours with elderly people who need help learning technology.
And separate team effort? All together? Okay, cool. Okay, so,
Oh, yeah, always separate. We're
oh yeah, okay. So what are you working on?
we're making a website for our school's urban academy so that they can upload pictures and videos and
That is great. Okay, so on each of your projects, they're all web-based something, and some of them have a database backend, it sounds like, and some are just more informational in nature, but it sounds like most are database, which is good. So we're going to talk, I'm going to give you kind of some ideas on how to start your projects, but for each of your projects, you're going to have a project lead, and that person will be reporting probably to me, right? Art, is that the plan? Like where they will report back to me about progress? And then your team will report to you and just tell you how they're getting along with what they agreed to build. These ceremonies right here, sprint planning, review, retrospective, and daily scrum. We'll talk about those real quick, but your sprint planning session, what happened between each sprint, or before the end of your previous sprint. And during that session, you discuss what you're going to work on for the next 1 month period or however long your sprints are. Let's just go with a month. Be done with it, okay? We're doing month-long sprints. And then your sprint review happens at the end of your sprint, and that would be with your client, who is yourself, but we'll figure that out. I think we'll do them here at your monthly meetings. But during your review sessions, you're going to present to us your progress. So you're going to tell us what you plan to do, what you actually got done, and where you're at. And we just want to see where you're at and give you some feedback and guidance on that stuff. Retrospective is where the team gets together and just talks about what went well during the sprint. So it's kind of like a stand-up, but it is all about the entire sprint. So what we did well together, what didn't go well, and then what we're going to do to make things better next time. So it's just a review, a reflection on your own performance. And then your daily Scrum meeting, I'm not sure how you guys are going to handle that, but you can do it on Slack. You can have a Slack channel that is just called stand-ups. You can do something like that. Or you guys can hop on a Skype call or Google Hangout or whatever you want to do just to do a quick stand-up. But that thing should take like 10 minutes tops. Like if you have 5 people on your team, a minute a person at the most. And if there's more you need to talk about, you can take it offline with your Scrum Master, but it's just a quick update for everybody. Does anybody remember what the product backlog is? Is that the whole project or is it just a subset of the project?
Whole project.
The whole project, right? Exactly, all the requirements. And then the sprint is a subset. Burn down charts, we'll talk about it here in a second. Oh, I get to skip a bunch of slides because I just talked about all those. Okay, let's skip. And I'm going to share these on Slack as well. Okay, we'll start here, actually. Okay, so on our product backlog, you basically have a list of goals, a list of things that your system needs to do, your application. So, like, what was yours again, real quick? It was the speed tracker, right?
Yeah, it's basically just keeping track of speeders, of people that are speeding, and then generating a heat map based on the locations in which they were speeding.
Okay, so it's like GPS.
Yeah, it would use a map of like Omaha and be like, okay, well here there's a lot of speeding going on here, so this is where the campaign needs to be the most, and then we might also share that information with law enforcement so that they know like, oh, this is where a lot of speeders are. Okay, let's go and enforce that. Speed limits there,
Okay,
or whatnot.
a couple more questions. Is it going to be like an app from my phone that would just be running in the background or something?
It would be a web application, so it would tie in with the organization's current website. So it'd be like a mobile first, like interactive website where it would change depending on whether you're on mobile or on computer. But it would be a website, I believe. Yes, I'm not quite sure how it's going to work out yet, but
Okay, cool, that's fine. I know you're in the early stages. I'm just trying to think of a story for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe one of them would be like, okay. I'll guess as a, okay, so you could do something like as a driver, I want to know how fast I'm going in order for my speeding to be tracked in the system or something like that.
Yep.
So you would have a story that is basically like, as a certain type of user, I want to do a thing to achieve a goal. That's how all of these are written. Like your guys' project, you might have a story that says, as a student, I want to see what types of volunteer opportunities are available for me during this period of time on this date or whatever. So just being able to filter by the types of your availability and the type of thing you want to do. You know what I mean? So basically, you would use this structure to create your backlog. And your backlog is a living and breathing document, so it's not like you create it one time and that's it, like old school project management. It's going to be refined because as you learn more about how you're going to build your thing, you'll figure out more of the things that you actually need to include here. So this column right here that says estimate is basically relative complexity. So in this example, you've got allow guests to make a reservation. They gave that a point score of 3. And then here they have one as a hotel employee, I can run these types of reports, and they gave that a score of 8. So all that means is that this is way more complicated to build than this is. And that's good to know, so that when you're planning for your sprints, you can say, okay, our team, we are able to do 8 points worth of work per sprint. We know that based on our performance. So you wouldn't maybe take on these 3, maybe you take on these top 2. But you try to keep your points, your committed points equal to or close to what your team can actually get done. Make sense? Okay. So that's the point of this. So you're going to create a backlog, and each item in your backlog represents a feature or functionality in your system that a user needs to be able to achieve. And then you give that backlog item a score based on how complex it is relative to other things in your project. And those points can change too as you learn more about what you can do. Okay, and then the sprint goal. So that was one thing we saw in the planning process. It's just a statement of what you're going to achieve. So typically the first thing that teams do when they're building an application is, like you said, they design it. They're like, okay, what type of screens do we need to have? What does this thing need to do? And they build that out. So your statement for your first sprint could be design the user interface for our web application. And those could be mock-ups in Balsamic or however you want to do it, but that would be your final deliverable. And so everything that you do, though, all of your stories that you commit to, all of your backlog items, should be related to that sprint goal. So if my story was create the user interface for this, would it make sense for me to be doing any database planning in that sprint? Not necessarily if it's only about the screens, right? So yeah, just kind of think about it like that. So for your sprint backlog, when you guys are doing your planning, nobody assigns work to anyone. So even if you're the project leader, you don't assign work to whoever. Each person decides what they're going to work on. And then the work that's remaining is updated daily. And I'll show you the tool we're going to use for that, which is Trello. Has anybody used Trello before? You guys? Yes. Okay. It's a very easy tool to use. Okay. In your sprint backlog, anybody can add or delete or change items in the backlog. Yes, let's see here. Updated work remains, right? Okay. As I said before, you're not going to be necessarily deleting anything. You might say that it's done or in progress, but you won't be taking things out of it. You're going to commit to the work and then do that work, and then whatever gets done, whatever doesn't, you just say we didn't get it done. Okay. We're going to skip this for now, because we'll talk about that as we go. Okay. I'm going to share these on slides, like I said, but there's lots of good resources for Agile, including scrumalliance.org. That's probably one of the best ones. But again, lots of good resources. Let me go out to Trello really quick, and I'm going to show you how we're going to use this tool for your project. Okay. So I'm going to make up a fake board out here, but you can sign up for Trello with your Google accounts or Facebook, I believe. But probably have whoever is going to be your Scrum Master set up the board for everybody. Okay, so I'm going to just create a fake project called my fake web project. All right, and then in Trello, you're going to have a blank page like this when you first start. So I recommend that you have 4 columns. One is going to be called the product backlog. And that's going to be everything that you guys are going to be working on for the entire project. So you have your product backlog, and then we're going to have our sprint backlog. And for each one, you're going to do, like sprint 0 would be your foundation, so setting up your environments and stuff like that. But then as you add sprints, we'll just add more. So let's call this sprint 0 backlog. And then in this next column, we would have one called in progress, and that just means stuff that we're actually actively working on. And then on hold, which means something that you're waiting for information for somebody or you can't move forward for a specific reason, so there's some sort of an impediment, so on hold. And then done. And done means just that, like you're done building it, you don't need to do anything else. So it's just going to be those simple columns. So product backlog would be everything that you have to work on. Sprint backlog, 0, 1 through N, probably 1 through 5. We have 5, 6 sprints. It has a typo in it right now, so ignore that. But that's going to be everything that you're going to commit to working on for the 1 month period. And then you're just going to drag them across the board as they get to done. So let's just say one of our cards is create the web design for the project. So create, let's see, say as a developer, I need to create the user interface for the website. And I'm going to create just a couple of these just to give you an idea of what this is. So, let's see. Okay, so there's a couple of cards. And then in Trello, what you would do is just drag them across. So let's say we are pulling design into our sprint 0. And as you work on that, in this column, it's in a to-do state, so nobody has started on it. But once someone picks it up, they would just drag it over to in progress and work on it from there. And your goal is to get your sprint backlog down to 0 before it's over with. And then get all of your committed to tasks all the way to done. Oops. All the way to done. Well, let me just take this back to backlog for a second. So we've got, we need to create a user interface or designs for the project. So we're going to open this up real quick, and you can add tasks to these stories. So we have this checklist option right there. Go ahead and add that. 1 second. Okay. So for creating a design, what are some things that we would do for that?
Sketch out a general design.
Okay, how about anything else? Determine color scheme. Sorry, 1 second. All right, so we're going to say, then you said sketch out design, right? Okay, anything else that we would do? Let's say those were the only 2 things we needed to do. As you guys are working through this, as you finish your tasks, you would check off when you're getting done, and your the parent checklist item, if you will show percentage complete based on the number of tasks you have within the. The number of items to be checked off within the task list. So that just kind of helps you keep on track. You can also assign assign people that own this story. So there might be multiple people working on it. You can assign them here. And then you can also add people to your task list. So we could do it, I don't think you can add a member right here, but I could put something like, if Grace was working on this one, for example, I could put Grace's name on there. So that would show that she is also contributing to this story. That's pretty much it. Let me close this out. And then you'll notice too that when you have your story and you have items in your checklist, you'll see how many items there are to do versus how many are done also on your specific story. So that'll just make it easier to see like what's kind of left overall. But that's it. So we're going to have this product backlog with a bunch of stories in it. We're going to take a subset of those stories and put them into our sprint backlog. And as we move forward, here's one other thing I want to show you. So let's say we are done with this sprint and it only included this thing. Take that all the way to done. Then here, we're going to just change this backlog to sprint 1. So that's us moving to the next sprint, and let's say we pull that one into there. Then we would do that, and then add tasks to it just like we did before during our planning session. Okay. Does that make sense? Easy enough, right? Okay. What questions do you have for me? No questions? That means I just did a good job of explaining this, which makes me very happy. Okay, cool. Well, I'll share these slides with you, and I'll be your kind of consultant on this project management stuff. Don't ask me about any coding stuff, though, okay? Because I'll refer you to someone else. So that's okay. But yeah, just let me know what you guys need. I'm here to help you out, and I think I'm on Slack. I am. You guys have messaged me, so just message me for whatever you need. Okay. That's it.